What's up guys? Welcome in this new video. In this video we're gonna take a look at SUI. I've never made a video about it. I've talked about it in live streams a whole bunch and in the Discord it is a popular one as well because it's just a really nice chart to look at. In this video I'm gonna take a look at what we can expect next after the big crash we have had on last Friday's night and what we can expect next. Long scenarios, short scenarios. So if you want to be updated fully on SUI, make sure to watch until the end. And I want to invite you to our Discord server. It is completely free. If you join, there's immediate value in our free trading course we have set up. And of course, you're gonna get value in all the charts we are sharing in there. So it's for your own benefit and I hope to see you there. And for now we're gonna get into the analysis on SUI. As we can see on most of the other coins as well, the big dump caused for a lot of liquidity being taken out on the lows. They all recovered from a pretty logical point and are holding support on levels we were gonna hold either way. So as I said, if you've watched the last video on Pepe, the wicks do the damage and the body tell the story. We talk about it a whole lot, but right now it's the most relevant thing to say. SUI came from a higher time frame distribution on the highs, as you can see, and we also had a lower time frame distribution on SUI. So SUI was one of a whole lot coins which already give us indications that a dump was coming. Of course, not a huge one like this because the technical target was this low, but still it gave indications that market makers were selling. On the higher time frame, there's not really anything more to discuss. We can immediately zoom in on the lower time frame because that is where the magic happens and where the price data is we have to work with now. We are still holding support from this demand which was untested with a lot of liquidity and also a POI zone I was gonna look at on SUI next. Well, coincidence, I think not. We're holding support in this right now. Like a lot of other coins, it corrected towards the upside pretty quickly. SUI even was a crazy one. It corrected for 300% at the top of my head. Yeah, 400% on the top from the bottom to the top. We have been correcting a bit, of course, taking out built up liquidity on the lows and tapping into some untested demand we had. You can see it on the 10-minute. A demand we made after breaking higher, building up a whole lot of liquidity above it, so this can be a nice place to continue trading higher from. I also immediately want to point out this supply we have after we got this expansion towards the upside. This is the last place in demand where buyers try to push price above the highs again. They fail, sellers take over and push price lower. So this is gonna be a relevant zone to look at for either shorts, or if we're strong enough and gonna manage to gain this, we could look at it for longs. Locally, I want to point out this range. We deviated the low once already, and there's a possibility we already have a market maker accumulation going because we tapped into our extreme demand of the range, as you can see right here on a 10-minute. Because if we're gonna create an accumulation, we're either gonna tap into our extreme demand, take out extreme liquidity, or deviate the low once more. It isn't the cleanest. Why? There's not really any liquidity built up and it was a rapid move towards the downside, creating our third tap, and the only structure to break was on a 1 minute and it was all the way over here. But of course that doesn't mean that market makers are already filling up positions at these lows to push price higher on SUI to at least our range high and maybe even towards this supply, and we'll see what happens from there. Our higher time frame high to break is this high. This is the last high that brought us towards a new low. So if we're gonna manage to break this high on the 1 hour, we are gonna get body's candle open and close above it. We can expect a higher high and a higher low until proven otherwise. Okay, what is a place to put in that potential higher low if we're gonna get it, or locally look for some upside? If you look right here, We have this demand. We can refine it a bit by putting in this box. This one is still untested. So right now, for more upside on SUI, we want to look to hold this price level to trade higher and from there eventually maybe even gain our structure high. If we're not gonna hold this, we can see there's a small demand order block still left open from here. That is just before a lot of trend liquidity that we have built up. If we're not gonna hold here and flip this level lower, we can trade towards this liquidity and maybe even towards a range low, and from there create that third deviation and get a accumulation towards the upside. So if we're never gonna manage to take out the technical target of the range high and are gonna reject from here and get a third tap, we never got any confirmations that market makers filled up here and they can still do it at the bottom. So the range low is still something to watch if we're never gonna manage to gain this or take out our range high. If we're gonna do that, this supply zone is gonna be a potential short PY zone if it's gonna be logical, but of course we're gonna take a look on our lower time frames when we get there. And this supply zone is gonna be interesting to look for longs if we're gonna manage to gain this. Okay, if we're gonna manage to gain this supply, what can we look at next? For that we're gonna zoom out again. If we look to the left, we can see we had this untested demand that we could have used to trade higher from, but never managed to do. This is also in combination with the bigger demand we did use to trade higher. So what happens when we lose a level like this? This is gonna become a breaker block, which can bring us lower. So this is the first major resistance point we're gonna have to take a look at on SUI before we're gonna get towards these supply zones. On the daily, we have this massive pullback where buyers try to push price above the highs. As you can see, we were in the demand to do it from, but the sellers took over, pushed price lower, so the buyers failed, making this a really big structure supply on a higher time frame to look at as first. And then we have a more refined, so we can see on the 4 hour we created just before the big expansion towards the downside. Also in some local demand, where buyers try to push price higher, they fail, sellers take over, so this definitely is a supply to watch. In this supply we can look at the same scenarios, a local short, or if we're gonna manage to gain this, longs. So right now we have to be patient on SUI, wait on how this range is gonna play out, and then we will see what happens from there. This will be the analysis on SUI for today. If you enjoyed it, make sure to leave behind a like, subscribe to the channel to be updated on future videos, and then I will see you in the next one. Ciao!